Alright. I'm back, and now it's time for some Chaos Head Noah. So. Let's see, the last time we played this... Well, it was funny because, like, right when we started... yesterday... right when I started reading through this yesterday, they basically revealed that Takumi is Shogun for sure, because it was 5 in the morning, Takumi was sleepwalking, and he got on his computer and logged in as Shogun. So, it is definitely looking like Takumi is the one that is masterminding all these new gen murders, but he's doing it while he's asleep. So he's sleepwalking and doing all this shit. After he woke up, well, I guess I don't know if he went back to sleep again after that or whatever, but basically during the day, I guess, he traveled to, I don't know, some alley. I think it was kind of outside of Shibuya. And he was looking for the D sword, which is what well, wait, where did he get the name D sword from? I'm trying to remember. Was it what was that what Fest told him, that it was the D sword he was looking for? Anyway, he did an internet search on the D sword, and he found that there was a specific shop that at least one person had bought something called the D sword from. So he went to that shop, and he did find a sword there. He thinks it's the D sword, so he bought it. And he had to walk back home with the sword in tow, so we left off right as he was getting back to his shipping container home, so... I was finally home. I'd started running once I'd gotten close, and I was out of breath by the time I got up to the base. The cold gazes of the people I'd passed had really stung. I don't know how Senna had managed to endure this humiliation. It was something I could respect in a way. There was no way I could do it. Suddenly, I heard a sound from the other side of the base. Was someone here? I froze and gasped. I remembered the smile I'd seen on the face of the demon girl who'd called herself Remy. Maybe she'd come back. This time, maybe she'd come to kill me. What should I do? Run? I could sense the presence of someone in front of me. The setting sun cast someone's shadow on the ground. It was clearly the silhouette of a woman. I quickly raised my D-sword. Holding it in my hands like this, I realized what a piece of crap it really was. The one Senna had held had a strange power and intensity about it. But mine didn't seem to have anything like that. Maybe it was a fake after all. Could I really fight with this thing? Not a chance. Even if it was real, I still couldn't actually fight someone with it. Holding it in my hands, it felt weirdly heavy. Maybe I was holding it wrong? It didn't feel like something I could actually swing like a weapon. The shadow suddenly began to move. It was coming closer. Oh, shit. Hold on. I'm checking something real quick here. Okay. I closed my eyes, thrusting the sword out in front of me at a random angle. Not that I expected to hurt anybody with it, but I had a faint hope that this sword could maybe, just maybe, help me. But then, nothing happened. My foe didn't say a word. Maybe the D-sword had annihilated the demon girl with a single swing? If so, that would be incredible.
鬼、その剣何？
Oh no, it's his sister. I opened my eyes, but instead of the demon girl, I saw Nanami. She was looking at me with contempt in her eyes. The tension drained from my body. I collapsed where I stood.
お前、脅かすなよ。
This was just awful. She was an awful sister. What kind of awful sister likes to entertain herself by scaring her brother? Who the hell did she think she was anyway? This was why 3D girls would always be inferior to 2D ones.
別に脅かしてないよ。いつもみたいにお兄の生存確認しに来てあげたんじゃん。なのにお兄いないんだもん。なんでナナが30分もお兄のこと心配しながら待ってなくちゃいけないわけ？ナナの貴重な時間が無駄に消えてっちゃったじゃん。お兄のバカ。
Worry? She was worried about me? I refused to be fooled by such an obvious lie.
で、どこ行ってたの？出かけるなんて珍しいじゃん。携帯にかけても繋がんないし。
I'd left the phone in the base. I knew nobody would call me, so there was no point in taking it.
そもそも、その剣何なの？もしかして買ってきたの？
She was staring at the sword, looking a little confused.
あ、わかった。アニメのおもちゃかなんかでしょ？ほんと、お兄ってオタクさんだね。しかもこのおもちゃ、ちっとも似合ってないよ。さっきだってへっぴり腰で構えちゃってて、思い出したら笑えてきた。
I ignored Nanami and opened up the padlock on my room, then tried to head inside.
ちょっと無視すんな。
帰れ。
You know I'm alive, now go home. She was always making fun of me, and did nothing but complain every time she came here. If she really hated it that much, then she should just leave. I certainly didn't want her here.
あのね、わざわざ様子見に来てあげてんだから、もっとありがたがってよ。せっかくお土産まで持ってきたのに。
She pouted at me.
お土産？
そう、お母さんが持ってけって。ほら、
She handed me some mandarin oranges, 10 or so, in a red net bag. It wasn't a great present. I'd eat mandarins if there were any laying around, but they weren't exactly a favorite of mine.
というわけでナナもちょっと一服したいから一緒に食べてあげる。
帰れ。
もう妹がお土産持ってきて、しかも一緒に食べてあげるって言ってるんだよ。もっと喜びなよ。
What was there to be happy about? Why would I want to eat oranges with my little sister anyway? She probably just wanted to eat some herself. She always was a big eater. She used to always eat my food too. We got in fights about it all the time. Nanami went inside the base, ignoring my protests. I had no choice but to follow.
お茶ある？あったかいのがいいな。
Of course not. I only drank soda. Nanami sat down on the sofa and took out an orange. I sighed and set the D-sword up against my computer desk. I didn't need the bangles, so I tossed it off into a corner.
あれ？それ何？
Nanami quickly picked it up off the floor.
へえ、かわいいバングルじゃん。これも買ってきたの？お兄にしてはいいセンス。
Cute? How? It was a cheap thing, probably not worth more than 500 yen. Nanami just had terrible taste. I ignored her and took a seat at my desk, grabbing an orange as I did so.
ねえねえ、なんでこれ捨てちゃうの？
だっていらないし。
じゃあさ、これナナにちょうだい。
はあ？
いいじゃん、どうせしてるならさ。たまにはお兄ちゃんらしく妹にプレゼントの一つでもしてよ。
It's not a present, it's just some junk you want.
勝手に持ってけば。
本当？やったー。
She was certainly easy to please. As soon as I gave the okay, she quickly put the bangle on her arm. Such a cheap little sister, enjoying such a cheap gift.
お兄、どう？似
全然。
合う？おっそ。お兄のバーカ。
I gave her a present, right? So why was she treating me like this? What kind of little sister calls her brother a jerk? Where did she learn to do that? Go play 100 H games and learn how to behave properly.
へへ、バーカ。
She was smiling too. I was really getting angry.
これ気に入っちゃったからもう返さないもんね。っていうか、お兄からプレゼントもらうなんて初めてのような気がする。しょうがないから大事にしてあげるよ。
Whatever. Nobody asked you to. I didn't even buy it for you.
もう用は済んだんだから帰れ。僕は暇じゃないんだ。邪魔するな。
Suddenly, she looked upset.
そんな言い方しなくてもいいじゃん。それにみかんまだ食べてないし、お茶もまだ出してもらってないよ。
おめえに飲ませるお茶はね。
うっかー。
She glared at me, shoulders heaving with rage. Eventually, her eyes started to tear up.
わかったよ。そんなに邪魔なら帰る。
ああ、さっさと頼む。
お兄のバカ。お兄なんてみかんの皮で目つぶし食らって失明しちゃ
I just knew she was getting ready to do this pose right here.
え。あとバングルは返さないからね。バカ。
Her high-pitched yell echoed through the room as she grabbed her bag and flew out the door with incredible speed. Whew. At last, the storm was finally over. Every time I talked to Nanami, I felt exhausted. Why did she keep coming when she knew how much I didn't like it? Read the room.
ファーストメルトは期待以上の結果に終わりました。
Bro, what the fuck is this?
GE レートの上昇率は当初の予測からわずかな誤差があった程度です。
バイオリズムコントロールも順調なのかね。
A graph which shows cyclic changes in a person's physical, sensitive, and intellectual states. Okay.
渋谷の GE レートは他のエリアと比べて高い値を持っていると同時に安定性についても特筆したものがあります。
それゆえに意図的に操作しやすいということか。そして渋谷にいる人々のバイオリズムを急激に引き上げることもまた。
実験結果についてはレポートをご参照ください。納得していただける成果を上げております。
貴様が成果を出すのは当然だ。そのために高い金と多くの人材を提供しているのだからな。
実効性については理解しているよ。この数ヶ月だけでも我が会の信者が数倍に膨れ上がっているからね。
それではプロジェクトノアは次の段階へと進ませます。よろしいですね。
コードサンプルの件はどうするのだ。すでに3人分は確保したとはいえ、目標数値には達しておらんではないか。
いかにも。数値達成のためには最低でも5人分はなければ厳しい。
サンプル保持者は集まりつつあります。あとは採取するのみ。
ならばその件は任せる。
信仰の救いあれ。くれぐれも慎重にことを進めるように。
はい、心得ております。
I have no idea what the fuck those people were talking about, and I have no idea why we're even getting that scene. I don't know who those people are. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I bit back a yawn and looked over at my PC's block. It was showing 5 a.m. I'd spent the whole night grinding in ESO and hadn't gotten the rare item I wanted. 8 hours of work and nothing. Well, it happened a lot. I looked over to the side of my computer desk. The D-sword I'd bought yesterday was still there. It was close enough that I could grab it at any time. It hadn't glowed at all for what it was worth. I was hoping that at some point it would transform into an awesome weapon like the one Senna had. On the monitor, Grimm's avatar had just leveled up. My Night Heart was max level, so he wouldn't level up again. As I rubbed my tired eyes, I wondered if it was time to make a third character after Liselot. I found myself thinking about experience points. They were something you saw a lot in video games, but the way I saw it, there were experience points in the real world too. When I'd started ESO, I'd been a completely clueless newbie, but now I was Basilard's famous lightning-fast Nightheart, the game's ultimate warrior. So, for instance, was it possible that some of the person inside me's experience points had been reset somehow? Maybe that's why I'd forgotten things that I should have known. Maybe that's where the weird inconsistencies in my memories had come from. Like with Shogun or the Demon Girl. Before I'd lost my experience points, that is, the person inside me, had used the name Shogun in chat. Maybe the Demon Girl Rimi had been a big part of my life too, and I wasn't a friendless otaku. No, that was going too far. But maybe before I'd had some kind of incredible power that would have let me fight the demon girl. I wondered if I was the only person who could come up with an idea like this. Not that it really seemed that strange to me. Humans could only ever judge things by standards they created for themselves. Did that mean it was possible that I, and not just me, but everybody else in the world was wrong about everything? When I was little, I'd gone to the dentist, and they'd said to me, "You did a great job not crying when it hurt so much." Back then, I'd felt kind of proud for enduring the pain, like I'd done something special. But looking back, they were probably judging how much pain I was in by looking at how bad the cavity was. But maybe the same level of pain was really bad for some people, and not so much for others. Maybe the way people felt things or sensed things was totally different. Take giving birth, for instance. I'd seen a lot of people online, for instance, saying that women could handle the pain, but men couldn't. Or what about marathon runners? Maybe what made them special wasn't their stamina, but the way they could endure pain. Or maybe take S&M. Some people enjoyed receiving pain and some people enjoyed giving it. Maybe everybody had different ways of experiencing their senses and different levels that they could endure. Maybe the toothaches and headaches that I sometimes had to put up with were a level of pain beyond what an ordinary person could handle. And if I could pass that pain to them somehow, they'd die on the spot from shock. All this speculation left me with the selfish delusion that I was somehow special.
特殊な人間か。っていうか、何を大げさな。
I denied it, but I'm sure it was a delusion everybody shared. Every man wants to be the strongest in the world. Everybody wants to think they're special, chosen. They want to believe a dramatic future filled with adventure is waiting for them, like on TV or in the movies. The desire to be a hero, I guess you could call it. It was childish, really. Of course, I had that same desire. Maybe it was my destiny in life to defeat the demon girl. Of course, if someone actually told me to do it, I'd have several conditions. I'd need cheat codes, obviously, like God mode for one thing, or invincibility. I didn't want to be scared or get hurt. Ugh. If I couldn't have that, in other words, if I had to do it right now, I would absolutely refuse. Which meant that if the person inside me's experience points had been reset, I might be at a big disadvantage. I was almost late today. Maybe staying up till dawn to play games before a school day was a mistake. I had to run to make it in time. When I arrived outside my classroom, I paused to catch my breath. I didn't want to do anything to attract attention from my classmates. Being late was a potentially fatal mistake. If any DQNs took an interest in me, my life was over. I slowly walked into the classroom. My head was pointed toward the ground, and I avoided looking at anyone. Of course, I didn't give anyone a cheery good morning. I tried to make myself as invisible as possible as I headed for my seat. That was how I'd always did things. Like usual, I reached my seat without any issues and sat down. I quickly put my head down on the desk. Now I'd be safe for the rest of homeroom. Or so I thought, until I was lightly tapped on the back.
ようタク、今週は3回も学校来てんじゃねえか。真面目だな。
Misumi again. I sighed, but it wouldn't be right to ignore him. I began to raise my head and stopped. Was this Misumi really Misumi? 2 days ago, I'd called him like the demon girl had told me to, but something had been very wrong. He'd acted like the demon girl was in our class. That was impossible. Maybe the demon girl had brainwashed him. Or maybe he'd become somebody else entirely.
おい、どうした？早くも爆睡モードか？
A loud electronic noise echoed through the classroom. I felt a slight vibration near my chest. It was my phone. Damn it. Why now, of all times? What kind of idiot would call at a time like this? And why was it playing the ringtone when I'd set it to vibrate? Maybe I'd messed up the settings.
お、鳴ってるぞ、タク。
I know that. Should I answer now? But if I did, Misumi would know that I wasn't asleep, and I didn't like answering the phone anyway. If I didn't answer, though, it would annoy the rest of the class. Having my phone's ringtone drown out the rest of the classroom was bad. I needed to stay invisible. This was really bad.
おーい、出ないのか？マジで寝てる？
But now I'd missed my chance. I couldn't move. Suddenly the sound and vibration stopped. It must have gone to voicemail. I let out a sigh of relief, being careful not to let Misumi hear me. I was glad I'd learned how to set up voicemail.
なあタク、相手は誰だ？まさか女か？この前一緒に帰ったあのメガネの子だろ。そうなんだろ？
Gah, shut up. I'm already attracting too much attention because of the phone call. Please just leave me alone. Was Misumi always this annoying? He was always too friendly, but he hadn't always been this annoying, right?
やめなよ。
That voice, it was coming from right next to Misumi.
そっとしておいてあげたら、大臣。なんだか疲れてるみたいだし。
She was in this classroom, acting like she belonged here.
どうせゲームのやりすぎだろ。お前、タクに甘すぎるぜ。
だって大臣は女の敵だし、そういう人には優しくしません。
She was talking like she belonged here. She was fitting in like she belonged here. I was too scared to look up. I didn't want to admit that girl was there.
ま、別にお前に優しくしてもらわなくても、俺には優しくしてくれる女はたくさんいるんだよ。
だからそういう発言が良くないんだってば。彼女さんが聞いたら泣くよ。今の大臣の彼女が誰だかわかんないけど。ほら、チャイム鳴った。先生来るよ。
Had the demon girl really always been my classmate? No, that was impossible. She wasn't here 2 days ago. Misumi was the only one who talked to me that day, and I hadn't come yesterday. And now she was here today. How had she wormed her way in? As the homeroom chime rang, everybody headed back to their seats. I fearfully looked up, trying to see as much as I could without moving my head. I wanted that voice to be a hallucination, and for that to happen, I needed to prove she wasn't in this room. I didn't see her. I didn't see the girl. Maybe it was a hallucination? My seat was in the 5th row. There were 9 rows in all. She wasn't in the seats in front of me. Did that mean she was behind me? But I didn't look back. I couldn't do something that would attract so much attention. Damn it. This was so frustrating. Was she in the room, or wasn't she? I didn't feel the prickling on my neck. Nobody was looking at me. I couldn't sense anybody's gaze. Was she here? Was she not here? Which? I stared down at my desk, trying to see if I could sense her somehow. Then I heard the sound of the teacher coming into the room. I forgot their name. It was Sukaji or Sukata or something, I think. It was the phys ed teacher, and he was a huge meathead. But he didn't yell or do any physical punishment either. If anything, he was the kind of teacher who could take a joke. There was a mild murmur of surprise going up and down the classroom, but I was too busy thinking about the demon girl to worry about it. How the hell was I supposed to sense anybody? This wasn't a manga. Was I just stupid?
今日から転校生が入ることになった。
The teacher spoke in a whisper. So that's what the fuss was about.
ほら、折原、みんなに挨拶しろ。
I couldn't hear the transfer student's voice. Was she really here? I took a quick glance at the front of the room. Sure enough, there was a girl there. She was really tiny. She might have been smaller than Nanami. She looked kind of weak and timid, in a moe sort of way. She was pretty cute for a 3D girl. Maybe. For some reason, there were tears in her eyes, and she was looking down. The class started to murmur louder as it became clear that the transfer student wasn't going to say a word. The teacher gave her a reassuring pat on the shoulder.
ああ、どうやら折原は緊張しているようだな。よし、挨拶はいい。みんな、この子は折原梢だ。仲良くしてやってくれ。折原、席は一番後ろだ。席についていいぞ。
The transfer student bowed silently and started to walk toward me. Her seat would be 4 rows behind me. I thought about pretending to follow her with my eyes as she walked, so I could look back and see who was there. But if I did, I'd stand out a lot. Some DQN might see me and say, "Don't stare at the transfer student just because she's cute." Then they'd try to beat me up. Holy fuck, dude. This guy is like really fucking paranoid. What should I do? Turn around or wait until homeroom ended? My head drooped as I squeezed my fists tightly. It was no good. I didn't have the courage. If I turned around and saw the girl,
この人似てる。
I could hear her speak. The transfer student passed by me. The next thing I knew, I was looking up. The transfer student stopped for just a single moment as she walked by my desk, but she didn't look toward me. She was holding what looked like a giant iron plate. Huh? I blinked and it was gone. What was that? Was I seeing things?
同じクラスでよかった。
She quickly passed by my desk. Was she talking to me? Why was she suddenly talking to me? Like me? I'm glad we're in the same class. Had we even met before? No, I didn't remember her face at all. There was nothing in my past involving a long-forgotten childhood friend either. Nothing out of an H game. Maybe I was finally starting to get popular? Or was the transfer student with the demon girl? If so, the net was closing in even tighter. It would get harder and harder to run away. Homeroom came to an end as I tried to figure out the answers to the new doubts that were rising within my mind. There were 5 minutes until first period started. Misumi was already on his way to the new girl's desk. He was evidently aiming to start hitting on her first day. My other classmates were all curious about her as well. The classroom was a lot noisier than usual. On the surface, it was a peaceful, ordinary day. But to me, it felt like I was in the middle of an enemy camp. My heart was pounding so hard and wouldn't calm down. My whole body felt tense, and it took a lot of courage just to move a single finger. I was fighting the impulse to turn around with the knowledge that doing so was suicide.
タク
My breathing almost stopped. My mind went blank. The voice was right behind me. She was here after all. She was right here.
具合悪そうだけど平気
Run. Run! I tried to, but my legs were shaking too much to stand up. As I sat there frozen, the demon girl, Rimi Sakihata, came around to my front.
汗びっしょり風邪でもひいたんじゃない
Just like she had 2 days ago, she sounded worried about me. Just like she had 2 days ago, she offered me a floral-scented handkerchief. I didn't take it in. Instead, I wiped the sweat away with my hands.
なんて
何
I couldn't even look at her. I could hear in her voice that she was smiling, though.
ねえねえさっき何話してたの
Rimi crouched down and put her hand on the desk, resting her head on them to look at me. She was looking at my face again. I looked away as fast as I could. Damn it. Was she just not going to let me escape no matter what? My heart was about to burst from fear. Somebody save me.
すっごく気になる
What was she even talking about? Who was I talking to?
転校生あの子がタクの机の横を通るときに小声でさボソボソーっともしかしてあの子と知り合い
Rimi was still smiling, but was I imagining it? Or did her voice sound like she was interrogating me?
タクってリアルの女の子に興味ないんじゃなかったっけもしかして本当は興味あるの
What do you care? Was she trying to find out my personal information so she could threaten me or something? No, I wasn't into 3D girls. That was something I was always clear about.
じゃあさ私にも実は興味あったりする
A freezing chill ran down my spine. More sweat was pouring down my forehead, even though I'd just wiped it away. Was that a threat? Or was she telling me to join her? Or was she trying to act moe and seduce me so she could set me up in a trap? Alarm bells were going off in my mind. I couldn't say another word to the demon girl, or I was doomed.
タク
I didn't even think about it. I just leapt up out of my chair and ran out of the classroom, tripping over the other students' desks as I went. I ran straight up the stairs of the school building onto the empty roof. The girl didn't seem to be following me, but still I couldn't relax. I decided to crouch down and hide behind something. My knees were shaking. I was amazed I'd managed to run like this. Maybe that was just a sign of how desperate I'd been. I couldn't take any more of this reality. Even that D-sword I'd bought turned out to be useless. I couldn't take it to school. I would stand out too much. I'd let my guard down. When Misumi had told me that Rimi was our classmate 2 days ago, I'd thought it was a lie or a delusion. But she'd really become a classmate. There was no sense in trying to figure out how she'd done it. She was a demon after all. She could do things that humans couldn't. Maybe she brainwashed the class, maybe even all the teachers. I couldn't go to school. I couldn't go to the hospital. Yua had been at Cafe, and Shogun had found me online. Her servants were getting closer and closer to me, and they were launching constant psychological attacks too. Maybe I'd do better to just not leave the base. There were too many enemies outside in reality. They were constantly threatening my peaceful life. I looked up at the blue sky, where the white clouds were flying freely, blown by the wind. If only I could be one of those clouds. About 3 hours passed. I spent the whole time silently crouched on the ground. For now, nobody seemed to be following me. Only after that was I able to relax. The problem was, what did I do now? Somebody was sure to come here to eat during lunch. Maybe my best option would be to run out of school and back to the base during 4th period. It would screw up my schedule, but I didn't have anywhere near the courage I'd need if I wanted to go back to class with the demon girl waiting. My bag was still there, but I'd just have to forget about it. The only things in it were books anyway. My important stuff, like my wallet and key, were all in my uniform pocket, right? I got worried and double-checked. Wallet, key, phone, they were all there. Only then did I remember that someone had called me earlier. It had really freaked me out when it happened. Not as much as when Rimi spoke to me, though.
一体誰だ
The only people who could possibly want to call me would be my family. It was most likely Nanami, right? She didn't care about whether she was bothering me or not. Who else would know that number? Oh, I also told it to those detectives. If it was them, maybe I should have picked up. We never did discuss exactly how they were going to send police officers to guard the base. The LCD display showed the number of the person who'd called. It didn't look like it was Nanami. I noticed I had a voicemail too. Did I recognize that number from somewhere? I decided to check my call history. There were only 5 calls there. In other words, only 5 times had someone called me since I bought my phone. 3 of them were from Nanami. What about the other 2? There was one from 5 days ago. What does this mean? I just noticed there's like a green thing you can push on the left and a red thing you can push on the right. What does that do? Anyway, there was one from 5 days ago and the one just now. Since their number wasn't in my contacts, it wasn't showing up as a name. Why don't I save it and then just try pushing one of these and see what happens. Okay. That was weird. I have no idea what that's even doing. It makes this thing spin faster, but other than that, I don't know what the fuck is going on. They were both from the same number, 03X733X991. If they left a message, it must mean that they really wanted to talk to me. Who could it be? The police, most likely. It wasn't Misumi or the demon girl. Both of them were right in front of me when the phone rang. Who else could it be? Maybe Yua? But there was no way she could know my number, and there was nothing I had to say to her now anyway. The only way to find out was to listen to it. I looked around to make sure the demon girl wasn't anywhere nearby, and put the phone up to my ear.
こちらは留守番電話サービスセンターです。新しいメッセージは1件です。1件目、10月17日金曜日午前8時28分の伝言です。
なんぞこれ。
What I heard wasn't a voice. It was a melody I knew well. It seemed to be playing somewhere far off in the distance. The caller might have been standing near a traffic light. You heard that melody a lot at crosswalks to let the blind know the light had changed. The song was called Tory Ants, by the way. A lot of people knew the melody, but not many knew the lyrics, probably. I knew them for what it's worth. I learned them in elementary school. I didn't remember them completely, but they went something like this. Okay, is this for real or is this just some Tory Ants is the name of the traditional Japanese children's tune. Yep, that's a real thing, apparently. Hold on, let me What a strange tune. Like, I don't know. It's just like, huh, okay. Pass through, pass through. What narrow path is this? This is the narrow path of Tenjin. It sounded like the way back is beep boop, beep boop. It sounded like an ambulance or something. It was probably a coincidence, but still, it was creepy. I don't know, that tune is like really eerie and unsettling. I don't know. I don't know why you would want to use it for traffic lights. Just after the melody cut off, I heard what sounded like a loud buzzer. The volume was so loud I yanked the phone away from my ear.
なんだ
I fearfully put the phone back to my ear, but the message was over. What was that about? It felt like I'd heard the earth rumbling at the end, too. That buzzer was totally different than the traffic signal. If it was that loud, they must have brought it right up to the phone.
いたずら
My heart was racing. Had I done something to piss somebody off? Who'd even make this call? I had their number, so I could call back if I wanted to, but I didn't have the courage. There was nothing I could do about it, and anyway, I was still in the middle of something much worse happening to me. I put my phone in my pocket and left the school, watching my surroundings as carefully as I possibly could. Well, this just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Takumi Nishijo's alma mater, Kitazawa Elementary School Number 2, was 5 minutes away from a privately operated train station. Yasuji Ban had the idea of talking to his old teacher, but when he called the school, he found they'd passed away. Instead, he'd opted to talk to the person he'd spoke to on the phone, the current head teacher, a man named Kamio. He and his partner had come here to do just that. It was a Saturday and the school was closed. Bon and Suwa were standing in front of the school building looking at it. There was a very eye-catching picture drawn on its outer walls. Bon wasn't the artistic type, so it was beyond him what the thing might be. It looked like a spiral, but it changed into 7 different colors from top to bottom, so it also felt kind of like a rainbow. Bon waved his fan as he stared at it. His partner Suwa pushed the call button on the gate. Bon suddenly looked around. It felt like somebody was watching him. It was an unpleasant, clingy sort of gaze.
俺ってそんなにかっこいいか？
He struck a little pose. He looked stylish and cool, he thought.
先輩、何変なポーズしてるんすか？裏門の方に通用口があるんで、そっちに回ってくれって。
Bond gave up on his pose and sighed. He started to walk. It didn't take long to find the teacher's office. The back gate led to the school's rear entrance, and a turn off the hallway inside took you there. There were, of course, no children inside the school. It may have just been the shiny linoleum, but the air felt cooler than it did outside. There were 3 teachers in the teacher's office. One of them stood up and bowed as the detectives entered. His rapidly graying hair was parted, and he had a pleasant smile on his face. This was Kamio. Bon and Sua brought out their IDs at almost precisely the same time, giving brief introductions before getting to the point. It was Sua's job to do the talking.
ここの卒業生である西条匠くんについて教えていただきたいんですが。
彼のことは印象に残っています。私は担任ではなかったから詳しくとなると無理ですが、それでも構いませんか？
Sua nodded and opened his notebook to start taking down a memo.
西条くんはどんな子だったんすか？
難しい子だと聞いていました。特殊だと。
特殊？
本来なら他の生徒に混ざって勉強するのはとても困難な、病気を患っていたらしく。
具体的には？
そこまで私が言ってしまっていいのかどうか。ご家族なり医師なりに聞いていただけますか？
Almost all the schools were like this these days. They didn't want any trouble. They'd refuse to do anything that could result in an angry phone call from a parent. It made the cop's job a lot harder.
担任の先生はなんで亡くなったんです？
事故です。遠足の最中、乗っていたバスが陥没した道路に。
あ、自分それ知ってるっす。ニュースでやってたっすよね。
子供たちは怪我をしただけで、幸い命は助かったのですが。斉藤先生だけが犠牲になってしまい、なんともやりきれない思いです。
西条くんもその事故に巻き込まれた。
Kamio shook his head softly.
あの子は当日欠席していて、バスには乗っていませんでした。
欠席の理由は？
病が悪化したと聞いたような覚えがありますが。
Bond vaguely remembered the incident, too. He'd seen the media standing outside the house of the one boy who hadn't been injured for days on end, trying to get an interview. The boy had never shown himself, however.
あれは悲しい事故だったんですよ。
For some reason, Kamio repeatedly seemed to put emphasis on the word accident. Yeah, I guess that is a bit suspicious, isn't it? Having a quick chat with Grimm before diving into ESO was becoming a daily routine of mine. We never talked about anything specific. We'd swap information about the latest at-chan threads, or talk about naughty stuff, or our latest favorite manga, or the anime we'd seen the other day, stuff like that. Oddly enough, we didn't talk much about ESO. We'd do more than enough ESO chat when we were playing after this. Nightheart, have you heard anything about weird pranks lately? Grim. Quisk. Yeah, they say what that was. Give me the details. Ugh. Nightheart, it was just something I heard. Nightheart, I don't know if it's really something people are doing. Nightheart, but like... Nightheart, they play weird noises on your cell phone. Grim, do they say naughty things with a moe voice? LOL. Nightheart, LOL, what kind of H game is that? LOL. Nightheart, I mean, if that was it, I'd love to get pranked. LOL. Grim, so what kind of whose eyes are those is it? Grim kept using that phrase. Instantly, I felt sick. The sentence didn't even make sense. Was the phrase funny enough that he had to force it in everywhere? I didn't think so, at least. If anything, it was stupid. But I couldn't start an argument until I'd asked him about the prank. I decided to just put up with it for now. Grim. Like the sound of some nasty otaku jerking it? LOL. Nightheart, that would be awful. Nightheart, actually, it's Toriance. Grim, Toriance? That's a song, right? The one they play on crosswalks? Nightheart, yep. Nightheart, and then suddenly it changes into this bzzz noise. Nightheart, and it's really, really loud. Nightheart, you ever heard of a prank like that? Nightheart, I mean, it sounds like something at Channer's would do. That strange noise that had been left on my phone yesterday. I didn't know who was behind it, and it was pretty unnerving, so I decided to try and ask Grim. If it was just a prank, I could forget about it. Huh? Why wasn't Grim responding? Nightheart, hello? Nightheart, you fall asleep? There was no answer. It was rare for Grim to pass out on me during a chat. It had never happened before, actually. But if it happened, it happened. I'd see him later in ESO, and I could talk to him then. Just when I was about to get up out of my seat. Grim, back. Grim, I ran a search on @chan. Grim, about that prank you're talking about. Oh, was that what he was up to? But that would mean that even Grim didn't know about it, and he usually knew everything. Grim, nobody was talking about it, though. Grim, not just on @chan, but on the rest of the internet. Nightheart, So it must be somebody who had a personal grudge against me then? I was starting to get really curious about who it could be, but I didn't have the courage to call them back. I suddenly had an idea. If I knew the phone number, I could have somebody else call it for me. Maybe Nanami or Misumi? Those would be the two safest bets. No, Misumi was brainwashed by the demon girl. He wasn't a good choice. Nanami was my little sister, so it would be easy to ask her. She'd get really mad later, probably, but that wasn't my problem. It was the least she could do after all the bullshit she put me through. I said thanks to Grimm and ended the chat, promising to meet up with him later in ESO. My stomach was starting to rumble. I was hungry. Did I have any instant ramen somewhere? I looked but didn't find any. I'd have no choice but to go to the convenience store. The sun had already set. I would have preferred not to be out at night if I could avoid it. Lately, only bad things had been happening at night. I headed to the convenience store, my feet moving faster than they usually did. It was Saturday, so normally I would have seen a bunch of people on the street. Today, it was empty. All the stores that would usually be open were closed. It was kind of strange. Maybe I'd forgotten what time it was? I thought it was 7 p.m., but maybe it was actually 2 a.m. or something. Nah, no way. Still, it was way too quiet. You couldn't hear any of the noises you usually heard in the city. The town felt different somehow. I made it to the convenience store in front of Shinsen Station. Even the area around the station was completely devoid of people. I was starting to get more than a little scared. When something you expect to be there suddenly vanishes, it makes you feel like you've been sucked into some strange other world. Normally, I'd avoided any interaction with other people, but today, I longed to see somebody's face. I ran into the convenience store. There, there should be at least be a cashier here, I thought. I looked around. There was nobody. Okay, let me try this shit again. So weird. But I have no customers, no employees.
まさか。
That was impossible, right? The cashier must just be in the back. If I took my stuff up to the register, they'd come out right away. I forced myself to take my time picking out a boxed meal from the refrigerated section. I even pretended to look at the manga magazines before finally putting my meal on the counter next to the cash register. Nobody came out from the back. I looked around. Still nobody came out from the back. I took out my wallet and checked how much change I had on me. Nevertheless, nobody came out from the back. I picked up the boxed meal and made a little noise with it before placing it back down. But nobody came out from the back. I didn't have the courage to say anything, even if there was nobody here. Even so, nobody came out from the back. I thought about trying to leave without paying, but I decided I couldn't take any risks that might end with me getting arrested. Regardless, okay, bro, why does it keep fucking repeating this shit? Nobody came out from the back. The cashier must just be taking the garbage out. Again, nobody came out from the back. Or maybe they're taking inventory or something. And yet nobody came out from the back. I finally got so scared I just put the thing back on the shelf and left. I came to the railway crossing right next to the station. I could see the Shinsen station platform clearly from here. There was no way a station platform could be empty, I told myself. It was just impossible. But of course, there was nobody there. I decided to wait for a train to come. If a train stopped at the station, people would surely get off. And even if nobody did, I could see somebody in the train as it went past. I waited 10 minutes, and there was no sign of any train. I tried to tell myself that there might have been an accident or something that had thrown the schedule off, but there still wasn't a single person on the platform. Only then did I realize the seriousness of the situation. It didn't make sense. This wasn't right. I decided to head to Shibuya Station. There was always somebody there, I was sure of that. The area around Shibuya Station was always busy, 24 hours a day. I couldn't take the fear anymore, so I started to run. I ran as fast as I could. Even when I started running out of breath, I still didn't stop. I wasn't sure if I'd ever run so hard in my entire life. As I ran, I wished this was all just some awful dream. But it wasn't. My heart and lungs were in so much pain. I thought they'd explode. There was no way this pain could just be a dream. I was surprised at how intense my breathing was. But no matter how much air I took in, the pain didn't go away. I headed down Dogenzaka Hill and finally got within sight of the 107 building. By that point, my legs were barely moving. My body felt incredibly heavy. But I forced my legs to move forward. I didn't even have strength left for looking around me. My entire consciousness was focused on getting me to Scramble Crossing, the symbol of Shibuya. Almost there, just a bit more. I just had to make it past the 107. Then I'd be in the busiest place in Japan, the place where everyone mixes together when the walk sign changes. That's why it's called Scramble. Scramble. Empty. The whole of Scramble Crossing and Shibuya Station were, were empty. A world without sound. A world that was dead. The air around the crossing was always filled with a flood of sound, but today it was ruled by silence. All I could hear was the sound of my own panting.
そんな。
I fell to my knees in the middle of the wide road. I couldn't take another step, but more than that, the shock had drained all the strength from my body.
ここ、渋谷だろ。
There was nobody to my left or right, or my back, or front, anywhere. It was the busiest time of the week, 7 p.m. on a Saturday. What was going on here? This couldn't be happening. I closed my eyes and put my hands up to my head. This was a dream, an illusion. It couldn't be real. Sure, I thought I'd want to live a quiet life all by myself. I didn't want to get caught up in anything or have anyone meddle in my plans. But that didn't mean I wanted to be the only person in the world. If there were no other people, who was going to pay my living expenses? If there were no other people, who was going to make the meals I got from the convenience store? If there were no other people, who was going to play ESO with me? If there were no other people... Sound. I heard a sound. It wasn't me. It was a sound someone else made. Someone was here. Someone else was close. I felt saved. It was just random chance that the crossing looked empty. Nobody had actually disappeared. I hadn't been left alone in the world. I was almost ready to cry from sheer relief. I turned toward the sound.
君は。
It was a boy in a wheelchair. He was silently sitting there some distance from me, but still in the middle of the road. It was hard to figure out how old he was. If I went just off his height, I would have thought he was in elementary school. He had a hat pulled down over his eyes, making it hard to make out his face. But
やっと会えたね。
the boy's voice was strangely clear. It was as if it was being whispered into my ear. I actually found myself turning around to check if someone was behind me. But of course, nobody was.
あ、これ、どうなってるんですか？
I asked him.
どうして、誰もいないのか？君は理由を知ってますか？知ってるよ。
His voice sounded young, but not like a child's.
それより、僕のメッセージは受け取ってくれた？
Message? I didn't know what he was talking about.
誰だ？君は。
His wheelchair advanced forward, wheels turning just a little. It must have been an old chair because it made a rusty creaking sound as it went.
その目誰の目？でしょ？
I wasn't sure what to think. Why had this boy suddenly said, "Whose eyes are those?" to me right here, right now? Who was he?
目覚めるんだ。早く。でないと、もっとたくさんの人が死んじゃうことになるから。君は一体。
I rubbed my eyes, wiping away my tears. Only then could I finally see his face. The boy wasn't a boy. His face was wrinkly, like an old man. His cheeks were caved in. His eyes sank deep into his skull. The white's cloudy, and he had no eyebrows. Yet his body was as tiny as a child's.
僕は将軍だよ。
Wait, what? How can he be Shogun? Okay, well, tell y'all what, I'm gonna leave it here on a fucking cliffhanger. Because it's getting late now, so I need to get to bed. Oh. Alright, well, we will continue this tomorrow. And yeah, we'll definitely do some more Outer Wilds as well tomorrow. Yeah, I got some shit to figure out on Quantum Moon now that I've actually found out how to land on this stupid thing. Which, oh my gosh, it's just so dumb that that was how you were supposed to land on it. But whatever, dude. Fucking annoying, but anyway. All right. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good night.